And no way out has come back to kill.
Roses are red, violets are blue. One is dead, and so are you.
Besides, you've got to see the dress I got. Cut down to here, slid up to there. I may not get out alive.
What's the boogeyman?
Sarah, please. I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry.
Harry, I'm coming. This whole fucking town is going to die. We're coming back, you bastards.
Hi, this is Lauren Marie Taylor from Friday the 13th Part 2 and Girls Night Out. And you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And welcome back to Hysteria Lives, number 13. Yes,
Continues.
Unlucky for some. Sorry?
Hysteria Continues.
Did I say Hysteria Lives?
You did, yes.
Oh God, it's not getting... I told you, well, actually, I still have a hangover. If you were listening to last episode, I had a hangover then. And it's not because I'm complete and utter lush, or maybe I am, I don't know. But it's because we recorded this on the same time as the last episode, so I still have the same hangover. So I apologise. This is episode 13 of The Hysteria Continues. And it's also part 2 of My Bloody Valentine. Now, My Bloody Valentine, 1981, didn't get a sequel, but the podcast for it has got a sequel, and this is what we're doing today. And before we get to that, let's talk to let's introduce our slash movie clan. As ever, I'm Justin. I'm the webmaster of Hysteria Lives and author of Teenage Wasteland. And I'm joined today, as usual, by Erik.
I'd rather Jack than Fleetwood Mac.
Thank you. That's Reynolds Girls.
Yes, you're getting good at these.
I am getting good at these. I don't know why. I wish I didn't know that, but I do. And Joseph.
Mein Bratwurst has a first name, it's Fritz. Mein Bratwurst has a second name, it's Schnackenpfefferhusen.
I'm scared.
Was that from Cabaret? No. What
Fritz
was that from?
Schnackenpfefferhusen.
Sorry?
It's Fritz Schnackenpfefferhusen.
Is that a friend of yours?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I wasn't expecting you to be prepared like that. So, Nathan, you've got you can have quite a difficult job topping Joseph.
God, I'm not going there. I am still feeling under the weather, so I am drinking some orange juice to feel better. Hopefully, by the time our loyal listeners are listening to this, I will be feeling great. Let's hope.
Excellent. Well, I hope you feel better, and hopefully by next time I record, my hangover will have gone as well. So yes, we're back to My Bloody Valentine, and obviously last episode we waxed lyrical about what is probably one of the favourite movies, slasher movies at its time, and we're going to talk a little bit about the background to the movie quite soon. But I believe, Nathan, you have yet another one of your what the fuck moments. Do you want to take us away with that?
Yes. It's and I feel kind of guilty even using this because the whole movie's a big what the fuck, and it's a Nail Gun Massacre.
Classic.
But there's the scene where the guy goes outside and the nail gun killer in camouflage is like hiding in the pool. Like the guy walks by his pool and the nail gun killer is just kind of floating there waiting on the guy to walk by, and then jumps up and like fills him full of nails. And then the guy kind of falls over onto his grill. But unfortunately, I don't think it was planned. The grill kind of tips forward. So if you look in the corner of the screen, you can actually see the actor's hand like push the fence so it'll put him back upright again. So I love that scene. And I mean, everything about that scene's ridiculous. Just the fact that, obviously they had a small budget, so they probably couldn't do it over with him, like the supposedly dead character, moving himself back upright again. But also the fact that they had the nerve to actually have the killer hide in the swimming pool. I mean, the killer just kind of lounging out there in this camouflage outfit with this nail gun, just waiting.
What, underwater?
On the guy to walk by.
I haven't seen
Not to mention he has that giant yellow pneumatic tank on his back.
Not very inconspicuous.
See, now I would, if I were picking, I would have went for the scene in the VHS version where the killer falls off the thing at the end, and then if you look at the bottom of the screen, you see the actor's leg come back up.
Yeah, but now that they put it on DVD, they've smartly cut that out.
Have they?
Yes, they
You
did.
don't see the leg fly up anymore.
Oh, well, that's a shame, isn't it? That's a shame because I haven't seen it since I saw it in probably about 1999 or maybe it was 2001 when I was in New Jersey visiting a friend Gina over there who's written for Hysteria Lives under the title The Blue Iris. And we bought, or she had, I think I may have bought in. That's right, I bought in New York. I remember going trawling for video cassettes in New York, and this is obviously not back before DVD, but certainly in the when you could go into these big clear out stores and there'd be loads and loads of videos. And I remember dragging this big holdall back from through customs, just crammed full of old NTSC videos, and one of them was Nail Gun Massacre. And I think, actually, sorry, getting off the subject slightly, but I think I probably told the story before, but I don't know if I've told it on the podcast. But I was so obsessed with finding like obscure video in New York that we were walking along Christopher Street, which is quite a famous gay area in New York. And I went and saw this video shop, and in the window it had like Oasis the Zombies cassette. And I went in there, and there was very threadbare kind of like video cassettes dotted around. But I picked up Oasis the Zombies and another horror movie, and then I realised it was actually a gay porn shop. And it must have been something to do with the licensing for that area. But they had to have they couldn't have like gay porn or any porn in the windows or anything. And it must have been some special licensing. You had to go through a door at the back to get to the gay porn stuff. But obviously the videos that were there, like Oasis the Zombies and stuff, were not there really to be bought by the customers. No one actually went in and bought them. So I was the people in the shop were just obviously quite annoyed that I was buying their kind of like non-porn stock, which means they would have to go and get some other crappy horror movies and stick them on the shelves out the front. But anyway, that's just an aside. But we watched Nail Gun Massacre. We watched it with Gina, and we had lots to drink. And I always remember she lived somewhere near Voorhees. Maybe if you live near New Jersey or know New Jersey. And so I remember we went to the Voorhees liquor store and stuff. Got some liquor from there. And I remember and this isn't a double entendre, but I gave her a bishop's finger, and it sounds very rude, but it's
that is a double entendre.
It's not. Well, it is, but it's not meant to be one. Bishop's finger is a kind of quite a famous beer in Britain, like a bitter. And I know a lot of Americans don't like, because bitter's served at room temperature, and it's kind of like a nutty brown beer. And I remember Gina had what? She had half a bottle or even a quarter of a bottle, and I remember she was up puking all night. So hopefully Gina won't mind me mentioning that. But that was after watching Nail Gun Massacre. So anyway, what a lovely trip down memory lane that was.
Yeah.
And I love your reviews on Justin's site, Gina.
Ah, excellent. Well, I'd like to
ask you.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask you when you went by that shop, if you sang, "How much is that gay porn in the window?"
Well, it was just kind of.
It wasn't gay porn in the window.
The one with the wagging cock.
But it wasn't gay porn in the window. Behind the beaded curtain was all the dildos.
Oasis of the Zombies is Jess Franco, is it?
It is, and it was the worst ever. This is the thing. In the UK, we didn't get with video. We didn't have any of this EP crap. Do you remember EP? It was kind of like it was kind of like it was
Star Maker. What was that other label name?
Video Treasures.
Video Treasures all did EP.
I mean, it was so because in this country you just didn't have it. It was all, and probably in Ireland as well. You just had standard videotape. Yeah. But in America, you had like long play and short play, which is normal.
We could record on long play if you wanted to.
But we even had medium.
In a medium play, but EP was the worst, wasn't it? Because it was about 4 centimeters of videotape, and so the film was so. I mean, Oasis the Zombies is obviously not a classic of any description, but it was kind of literally. You couldn't really watch it. It was just so blurry, and so I don't know how they got away with that. How did they get away with releasing stuff on EP in the States?
The one thing about EP is I've noticed that the quality is terrible, but if you look at the box art that they released, most of the EP tapes have the best box art ever. Like Video Treasures and Star Maker, the actual illustrations on the VHS were always phenomenal, whereas the quality of the tape were, shit.
I think Interglobal released an LP, and they have that artwork Justin really likes for Just Before Dawn with the killer and the tent.
That's what I always wanted, and I can never find it. I can never find that artwork. I always wanted it.
Oh, I'm just looking across the room at my. I've got a little NTSC corner, and I've got like some great sort of artwork, which is different from the UK ones. I think some of the ones like Hide and Go Shriek has got really good artwork, and Evil Judgment, and Stage Fright, which is the Australian slasher, and it's got the really mad looking eyes, the girl, and The Night Brings Charlie, and all sorts of so all kind of classic.
What's your Hide and Go Shriek look like, Justin?
It's got a picture of the girl. She's kind of like I think she's either under a bed or she's the killer's kind of bare feet. And that's a film that it's a lot of these films. I mean, let's face it, we could go on with this shit forever, couldn't we? Talking about classic slasher movies and not so classic, because we are going to get to, when we're very, very old, or older than we are now, we're going to get down to. I mean, what was the real crud? Of kind of like in 20 years' time, we're going to be ending up with what is it? The Last Slumber Party or something. Although you quite like that, Nathan, don't you? Are you?
Yeah, I actually was going to pick it, probably fairly soon.
I think you should, because we're saying... Sorry, Gilbert has chuffed on my lap.
Don't make me watch that movie.
So it's kind of like... so I'm just trying not to breathe in. This is it's a fourth dimensional podcast, this. Thankfully, you can't smell what's going on here. But I do apologise. So... Have we got anything else, any other business or anything we want to bring up? Any random... Business? Sorry?
Business, yes. Well, hopefully, I haven't lifted them up, but hopefully I haven't followed through. Anything else? Because obviously we can get on to... Obviously, we've got, with My Beloved Valentine, we've got 2 interviews, and we are going to be talking to Thomas Kovacs very, very shortly, or Joseph has for recorded interview. But should we talk a little bit about the background in the movie? Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah? Okay. I don't think there's any double entendres here, but shall I just kind of waffle on for 5 or 10 minutes, and then you interject if anything comes to mind, or if anything that I haven't covered? Does that sound good?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Right. I'll try and speak through my hangover. I'm feeling a little bit more perky now, so that's better. But originally the My Beloved Valentine was originally called The Secret. And I think there's some kind of dispute about why it was possibly to keep the name a secret, because I think famously is one which I'm not sure which Friday the 13th film, I think it was part 6, was called Aladdin Sane, which is obviously a play on the old David Bowie song or album, whatever it is. And so but apparently the originally Stephen Miller, I think he ran a drama school somewhere in Canada. He approached John Dunning and Andre Link with an idea for a treatment for a film, and obviously this was in July 1980. So would Friday the 13th have been out by then? I imagine.
Yeah, it came out in June 1980, didn't it?
So Friday the 13th was probably the direct inspiration for Stephen Miller. I mean, I'm not sure, but I imagine it probably was. And obviously they thought time was ripe to make a film like this, and then John Beard was brought in to turn a screenplay into a screenplay with the least possible delay. Then George Milahalka was told in August 1980 that he'd been hired to work on a film, but it would have to be finished by the golden date, which was obviously February 14th, 1981, which was obviously Valentine's Day. John Dunning and Andre Link obviously taking a look, and I think Erik, we talked about it a little bit before in the last podcast about the the dates in the calendar are being used up very, very quickly, and no one had used Valentine's Day yet. And famously, I think X-Ray, the hospital slasher, was going to be My Valentine or Else, and I think that got changed after My Bloody Valentine came out. There's some difference of opinion about this, but apparently Paramount picked up distribution deal almost immediately for the film before it had been made. And obviously this is off the back of Friday 13th, where they saw dollar signs in their eyes. But then also Going to Pieces, Adam Rockoff's book, which is a fantastic book about slash movies, if you've not read it, said that Paramount didn't commit. So there's a bit of difference of opinion. But so apparently Link and Dunning had to get financing elsewhere. But the other side of the story, and this is where I don't know what's true, but said they wanted My Bloody Valentine to be so bloody it would make Friday 13th look like a Sunday picnic. The film was budgeted about between $1.5 to $2.5 million dollars. And what I think really works, and we talked about it last time about how the casts work really well together, and the director said he wanted to make a working class horror movie, and I think Erik, you mentioned about how the difference was this wasn't like kind of rich students, like for instance say The House on Sorority Row, which we covered a couple of episodes ago. This was kind of working class teenagers, 20-somethings, and in the film they're still called kids. The sheriff calls them kids and stuff, but they're kind of a little bit older perhaps. But apparently the cast was taken to the area where they shot it in Nova Scotia about a week before they did to Bond. And again, it's a kind of testament to how much care and time went into the movie that they bothered to do that. So the cast were there, they got to know each other, got to see the town, and how a small town kind of knit together. And I think some of the cast said they went to bars and everyone was fighting, but in a kind of not exactly good-natured way, but that's just what they did. So they kind of knew how the film should feel, I kind of guess. It was really shot in the mine, obviously, and I said in the last episode, the idea was that the mine should become his character as much as Harry Warden. The filming in the mine was an issue, partly because of real issues of filming in mines, which is kind of methane, which obviously I just had from Gilbert sitting on my lap. But I think a slightly bigger thing with methane. So all the electrics had to be specially inspected. It was shot in somewhere called Sydney Mines in Nova Scotia. I believe there was huge worries about the mine workers who were there, or the people who were looking after the mines were worried that lights used on the shoot might cause an explosion. So I think the director says that they had to really rush the film. In fact, I think they had to finish the last bits in 24 hours. The film, I think Andre Link and John Dunning produced it, and of course they, nothing against them, because we forget when people make films, they make them to make money. They're not making them not to make money. And this is My Bloody Valentine was a commercial decision to sort of join the wave of slash movies coming out at the time, and that's nothing against it. But I mean that's just what it was. But they wanted to make a franchise specifically. They wanted a franchise. Now, interestingly, as most people probably know that Happy Birthday to Me, which Andre Link and John Dunning also produced, which we covered actually on the first episode of the podcast, was filmed before this, but was released after My Bloody Valentine. It was actually more successful than My Bloody Valentine at the box office. But shooting got underway on My Bloody Valentine within a week of Happy Birthday to Me wrapping. Some of the actors all appeared in the director's earlier Pinball Summer. Was Tom Kovacs, who we're going to be speaking to in a minute, Helen Uddy, Carl Marot and Rob Steen had all appeared in that film. Mahalka said that they came up with interesting ideas of how to kill people, and I think Paramount had said they wanted not people just be killed with knives or anything like that. They wanted different ways to people be killed. It was really at the height of the created death what was happening. And obviously Tom Berman was involved with the special effects. Also Ken Diaz, who speaks on the relatively recent released special edition, said that Paramount said really up the gore. We want it to go one higher, and it was this kind of best one-upmanship, which is very common at the time. But he actually said that it was so gory that George Mihalka actually puked during one of the gore FX sequences. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it makes a very good story. And Tom Berman was talking at the time, saying, I don't think he was particularly fond of doing this kind of special effects, but he called them something called graphic repulsion, which I kind of guess what he means by that is actually doing stuff that's so horrific that audience wants to watch, a bit like, I don't know, rubbernecking by a car crash, but they also want to look away. Now, obviously, My Bloody Valentine, the way it started and the way it ended was very, very different. I think the film had wrapped, and they were in the editing process when John Lennon was shot in just early December 1980. And that really changed, changed the playing field, along with all of it was just kind of basically, it was the catalyst for lots of critics and people to really take umbrage at these type of films. And unfortunately, My Bloody Valentine was pretty much there, and because it had it had to get cut and getting a certificate before the Valentine's Day release. I think it was released a few days before Valentine's Day in 1981. It didn't really have much leeway. So Mihalka says that there was a burgeoning sort of movement against violence in movies, and the MPAA, who had been smarting after the fact that they'd let Friday the 13th through pretty much unscathed, really went to town on My Bloody Valentine, and Friday the 13th Part 2 is kind of very well known. So around 30 cuts were demanded of the film before it got an R rating. Just sort of say a couple of other things. The film got a wide release, unlike House on Sorority Row, which was released a few years later. When that got a regional release, and it used to be back in the day, now in America and in the UK, I don't think we really ever got regional releases in the UK. Kind of got London-only releases and things like that. But still back then, it was still not exactly novelty, but certainly for big films that picked up by big studios like Paramount, you would get wide releases. So the film got a release of 1,180 prints ahead of Valentine's Day 1981. Now, it's again, we forget. I mean, My Bloody Valentine is so well regarded today. We forget it was actually a bit of a flop at the cinema. Paramount were expecting, well, they hoped for a cash cow like Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th made something like 40 million at the box office. My Bloody Valentine made something like 6 million. Apparently opened up very strongly, probably playing off the whole Valentine's Day thing, but then it dropped off very, very, very quickly, and it was quite a major disappointment for Paramount. And I think it's arguable. You could say that if the special effects had still been in there, then the audience may have stuck with it. But then it could have been symptomatic of all sorts of things, including the backlash against these type of movies by critics who, in some instances, even if they were talking about them in their columns, they were really attacking them. But one of the common tactics actually came out around about this time was actually deciding not to cover them at all, so not even to review them, which meant that people may not even know they were on. So that's the thing. And the last thing I was going to say, because I'm sure you guys have probably got a few things that you want to say, and I've sort of prattled on, far too much already. But it was just we spoilt it last episode. If you've not heard last episode, you probably have. But is that obviously Neil Affleck, Axel, is the killer. And the cast were not told who was the killer, which is a kind of common tactic to keep the cast kind of sort of on edge. So nobody knew they were the killer, but Axel said it was given away a little bit when he had to go and have his arm cast for the bit where he chops his arm off at the end, and he knew that meant that he was the killer. So yeah, that's a bit of background on the movie. What about you guys? Have you got anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say that in the research I did, the reason that it was called The Secret in its as its working title was they didn't want to move into this small town with the title of My Bloody Valentine for fear that it might scare them off, and they might be prohibited from filming in this mining town. He said he wanted to be sensitive to the fact that there probably were some mining deaths in the community over the years, and they didn't want to come in with this quite exploitative title like My Bloody Valentine, so they kept it as The Secret. That's one of the things I found, but I think they always intended to call the film My Bloody Valentine. Just one quick correction, it was actually released the Friday of the Valentine's Day weekend was Friday the 13th of February 1981.
Okay, yeah.
That's when it was released in Canada. Now, according to the IMDb, it was released on the 11th of February, which would have been the Wednesday. I don't know, do films open on Wednesdays in the US, Joseph and Nathan?
They do.
They usually open on Friday.
Well, they open on Friday, but they open on Wednesdays if they want to get a head start. Like
that's the same over.
A blockbuster.
That's the same.
Like if it's a big blockbuster, they'll open it on a Wednesday.
Yeah, that's the same over here. And George Mihalka actually says that the reason it didn't do so spectacularly at the box office, as you said, Justin, is that he thinks that the cuts really harmed the film, especially all the coverage that Fangoria gave it. A lot of people went to the cinema expecting something quite graphic, and then were really let down, and then word of mouth got out, and it sort of fizzled out a bit. But as you said, the film was all shot on location, apart from two scenes. The two cave-in sequences obviously had to be done on a stage set, but the rest of it is all done for real in a real mine. And as you said, they had to be very careful with the electrics, that use low wattage bulbs, because they couldn't use proper movie lights, with the methane levels down there, that could get quite dangerous. I also have something to say about the one deleted sequence that didn't make it back into the new Redux. I'll do that after we run the interview with Tom Kovacs, because it's about that scene. I found out the details of what was involved in that particular one. Maybe you guys have as well. I found out that Peter Cowper, who played the miner in the sequences, we never see it. He plays Harry Warden, so we see his face at the start. He actually is now a massage therapist in Colorado, and he goes under the name of Liam Blackwood, believe it or not. And Rob Stein, who plays John in the film, he's now a producer working for the Ted Turner Network, and he also is working under a pseudonym of Sam Roberts. Why? I don't know, but But
you've just now outed them.
Yes, well, I mean, Alf Humphreys actually outs them at a Q&A at Monster Mania in 2010, so that's where I got that information from. So if I'd known that earlier, we might be able to track them down for interviews as well.
Excellent.
I just wanted to throw in, if anyone's noticed a lot of my Simpsons intros, Neil Affleck, who played Axel, actually does a lot of animation timing and directing on The Simpsons, Family Guy, American Dad, so I thought that was pretty cool as well.
Absolutely. How about you, Nathan? Have you got anything to add?
No, I do not.
Okay. Oh, you sound so sad.
I am sad because I don't have anything to add.
Justin, I think, exhausted everything.
Yeah, I do apologise. I was a titbit a hog, as it were. That sounds a bit rude, doesn't it? But I don't know.
Did you say tit hog?
No, titbit. As in
tidbits of information. Yes.
It said tit hog. I was like, what? What is it?
Yeah, it sounds like something that you'd be doing on that street in New York.
Yes, very possibly.
On Grope Cunt Lane.
You have to mention Grope Cunt Lane every time, didn't you? But you looked that up, didn't you, Joseph? And you saw... I wasn't making that up, was I?
No, he was not making that up. That really was a road.
And so you're going to be looking up Three Cocks and Lord Hereford's Knob. And to see
whose knob was it again?
Lord Hereford's.
Lord Hereford's. Okay.
You have a look. Look while we're talking, Erik. See if you can
find it. Is it K-N-O-B or N-O-B?
K-N-O-B, I think.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh.
So,
who or misses?
Well, exactly. So we were sat astride Lord Hereford's Knob on a number of occasions when we've been that part of the world. I was just going to say about the proposed sequel, because we talked last show about films that didn't get a sequel that we thought we should have, and My Beloved Valentine was had a long gestation sequel, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more maybe when we actually talk about the remake, which we're going to do fairly shortly. I think we're going to should we cut to the interview with Tom Kovacs now?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this was you did this one, didn't you, Joseph?
Yes, I did that a couple of weeks ago. Actually, we had a little bit of dueling date books as far as picking a day to actually record, but we finally got around to it, and he was a really, really fun guy to talk to. Excellent.
Well, here's Joseph talking to Tom Kovacs.
From the heart comes a warning filled with bloody good cheer. Remember what happened as the 14th draws near. It can't be happening again. It can't be happening again.
Hello, everybody. everybody. Joseph here, speaking with Thomas Kovacs, who of course played Mike in the 1981 slasher classic My Bloody Valentine. To start off, how did you get involved with My Bloody Valentine?
I had worked with the director, George Mahalka, in 1979 on a film called Pick Up Summer. And then in 1980, I got a call from him to join him on the My Bloody Valentine project.
Your character was killed off screen along with Harriet, played by Terry Waterland, and later the character of Hollis discovers the bodies. Do you know if there was an actual death scene filmed or at least scripted, or was it always meant for your bodies to be discovered in the mine?
No, we actually had a death scene. We actually spent almost an entire day in that small room with the crew filming an actual death scene where Harriet and I were on the bench making out, and then we get the auger put through us by the killer. And it was a long time spent in that small room with the entire crew filming that death scene. And from what I understand, in the last year or two with the reunion that we did in Cherry Hill, I learned that the footage was never used in the film, and the footage has never been found. For some reason, that footage all got lost. They found almost everything else, but for some reason, that particular footage was never found.
Wow, that would be a really good find if someone were to dig that up, I think.
I would think so too, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any kind of amusing behind-the-scenes stories that you might remember when the cameras weren't rolling?
Yeah, I do actually have a few. Stop me when you've had enough.
Okay.
The first one was we were given a tour of the mine, and we were walking, I think there were 4 or 5 of us being led to a tour of the mine by a guide. And we were walking through a rather narrow hallway. I'm not quite sure what the word is I'm looking for here. But we came across somebody laying charges in the ground. From what I understand, he was trying to level out the ground there, the rock, to lay down tracks for a car, for the car that carried the coal. And so we passed him, and we kept on walking down this corridor, this very narrow corridor. And at one point, we heard this really sharp whistle come from behind us. So we could still see the guy who was laying the charges in the ground. We could still see his hat light off in the distance. And then eventually the hat light went off, and we no longer saw him. And then a few minutes later, we heard an explosion from where he was.
Uh-oh.
He had detonated the charges. And then the guide said, "Wait for it." So we're standing there waiting, and suddenly this wall of, compressed air because of this sheer force of the explosion. I mean, it wasn't a catastrophic explosion. It was a very carefully calculated explosion to clear the rock. But it was a wall of air that just hit us with a real force, and it knocked me back a few feet. I didn't land on the ground or anything, but it was just stunning to be hit by that wall of air, because I had never experienced an explosion before in my life, and that was rather stunning for all of us.
Wow, I couldn't imagine being in an explosion like that. Did it hurt? I mean,
no, it didn't hurt. We were far enough away that we were not in the vicinity of the explosion itself, but okay. It was the rush of air, that was a result of the explosion coming down that narrow corridor.
Okay.
That eventually hit us, and that's when I staggered by the sheer force of the air that had been pushed as a result of the explosion. Let me put it that way.
Wow, that's incredible.
The pressure of the air, that just a wave of pressure just came and hit us. Yeah.
Was he clearing things out as part for the movie, or was he like working on something completely different?
It was a working mine.
Oh.
We had toured a working mine. I think we filmed in an abandoned mine, but we were given a tour of a working mine just to get a sense of what a working mine was like. And so it was a working mine, and he was laying charges for his job, nothing to do with the film.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting.
All the actors were in a group, and I'm wondering if maybe Alf or somebody else who you've already interviewed maybe shared this story. But there was a time when, so all the actors were preparing for the tour of the working mine, and we were standing in a group being briefed by the overseer of the whole tour for the actors. And at one point, he said that we were going to break off into two groups. So the main characters, the leads, the acting leads, would be taken down to the face of the coal mine, the actual working face of the coal mine. And the secondary leads, which included me, would be given a tour a level higher up. You know, we weren't going to see the actual coal face. We were just going to wander the corridors higher up on a level that was a few hundred feet higher above the coal face. So at one point, he introduced us to the two guides. The one that would lead a group to the coal face, and so I guess in a confusion, or we just didn't understand who was going with who or whatever. I don't know how it happened, but one of these guides looked at me and asked me, "Okay, let's go." And he's the guide. You know, I didn't question anything that he did because my safety is in his hands. So I said, "Okay." So I started to follow him, and all the secondary leads followed me, including this guy. So we get in the cable car, or the car, and go down into the shaft, and we're going down, and then we get in the elevator, and we're going down and down and down and down and down, and then it dawned on us that we're heading to the coal face, and we were rather taken aback because we weren't supposed to be going to the coal face. We were supposed to be on it was the lead characters that were supposed to go to the coal face. And so when we finally realized that a mistake had been made, that we were with the wrong guide, I just thought, oh, this is going to be so cool. We're going to see the coal face. And the acting leads, I don't think ever did get a chance to see the coal face because they didn't repeat the tour. And I got to see the coal face, man. It was just right there, this huge machine just boring into the black rock. It was a real unbelievable experience, and I can't even imagine what it must be like to work down there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, maybe 6, for 20, 30 years of a man's life. That is some kind of labor, I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's commitment right there. Do you find it incredible that after all these years the film has kind of endured, it's become has such a cult following? I mean, what do you think about that?
Yes. I think a few short months after I joined Facebook, in early, I think it was 2009 or maybe even late 2008, I think it was a few months after I joined Facebook, I received this Facebook message from somebody in Australia who I didn't know, and he had asked, are you the Thomas Kovacs from My Bloody Valentine? Well, my jaw dropped. I mean, I hadn't even talked about the movie in 30 years, for heaven's sakes. So I sent him back an email. I said, yes, you found me. I am the Thomas Kovacs in the movie. And then I received a reply back from him, a very lengthy reply saying, oh, my God, I'm so glad I found you, and I'm honored to be, it's got such a, did you hear what George Mahalka said about you in one of his interviews? And I'm so flattered to be your friend on Facebook. And I was just I was really stunned that somebody would have such a vivid response to a film. So that was my first indication at what effect or what kind of following the film had. And of course, a year and a half later, or maybe 2 years later, me and 7 other cast members, we went to Cherry Hill, New Jersey for the Monster Mania convention. And there we were sitting at a table, and just one fan after another just came to the table and for our autographs. We were dumbfounded. To be honest, I was a working stiff in an office, and it was we had no idea up until that day just what kind of effect the following effect and what kind of following the film had. It was pretty mind-blowing for all of us, and we became big fans of the fans. That was a phrase that Alf Humphreys coined, and I think it was so appropriate. We became fans of the fans because they were just so great and such wonderful people, and so excited about the fact that they were meeting us, the cast of My Bloody Valentine.
That's excellent. My Bloody Valentine is very well regarded around like horror circles. So, yeah, I mean, after all these years, it's like still one of the films. I mean, it's held up against like the Friday the 13th series, the Nightmare on Elm Street films, and mentioned in the same breath. So it's pretty incredible that after all these years, it's still talked about and everything like that, and everyone's hunting down cast members for conventions and things of that nature.
Well, even this interview, is quite flattering, that somebody would want to interview me for something I worked on 30 years ago, which is even another indication of just how much of an effect the movie had on horror movie fans, right?
Oh, exactly. But, yeah, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, so I just want to say I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk with us here. And I guess, is there any kind of last words you'd like to say to the fans out there?
Thanks so much for enjoying the movie.
What is it? What's the matter? What's going on? Dad, what are you talking about? Dave is dead. Somebody's killed her. It's Harry Warden. He's here. Everybody get the fuck out. Go! Go!
All right, that was Thomas Kovacs who played Mike, and he had some really good recollections on My Bloody Valentine, and it was a pleasure to talk to him. And Mike, I called you that during the interview, I believe. Your real name is Thomas. I realize that now. That's why you were laughing. But we will send you this link as soon as we post, and I know you really wanted to listen. So thanks for the interview, Thomas.
Yeah, excellent. It was great. And Erik, have you looked up Lord Hereford's Knob?
I have looked up Lord Hereford's Knob. It is a mountain in the southeast of Wales, and it's also the name of a song by Half Man, Half Biscuit.
Ah, well, there you go.
Yes. Can I just say about the Thomas Kovacs deleted scene? Again, at that Monster Mania convention that you can see on YouTube, they do discuss what was involved in that. Apparently, he's making out. Is it Harriet? Is his girlfriend's name in the
Yes.
film? Yeah, himself
Yes.
and Harriet are making out. He starts grunting, and she thinks he's getting really, really excited, and she starts going, "Ooh, this is exciting!" But it turns out he's been stabbed in the back, and blood starts coming out of his mouth and goes into her mouth, and then she gets impaled as well. And that's the scene that was filmed, and they said they filmed it twice, and it was quite elaborate, and they just can't find the footage anywhere.
Oh, it's such a shame, isn't it? I mean, it's...
Yeah, I really wanted to see that. When he told me about that, I had no idea that they actually filmed a scene for that, but I would really like someone to unearth that.
Well, fingers crossed they do. They do. So, yeah, well, shall we... Talking about sequels and remakes, which we're going to be talking about. I'm sure you guys, you've heard that there was quite a few talks about doing a direct sequel to the 1981 film.
Weren't there a few years ago, before they did the remake, wasn't there talks about before they released the uncut footage how they would basically make the mine a theme park, and they'd have the uncut footage kind of like playing or something like that in the background, like on screens.
Or they were going to. That's right. They were going to put some. They were going to cut it into it some way. I mean, the information I found is that that Dunning, Lincoln, Mahalka approached Paramount in 2001 with a proposed sequel, and they declined. They just weren't interested. Which I mean, maybe if they'd done it straight after when Screamer came out, I suppose by 2001 and things had cooled off a little bit after the post-Scream boom. But apparently Mahalka brought up the possibility of a sequel again in 2006. And this is what's on Wikipedia, so who knows if it's true. But I mean, there's no reason to because we know there was a sequel talked about. But with the plot line, apparently was of characters visiting from the original movie, with Sarah and TJ would have since married, with Sarah as the sheriff of Valentine Bluffs. The mine, as you said, turned into a fairground thrill ride, a sort of thrill ride, would have become a centre of a new bloodbath. But they go on to say that obviously since the 3D remake in 2009, it's kind of highly unlikely that there was going to be a direct sequel to My Beloved Valentine. Obviously. I mean, should we talk a little bit about the remake now? What did you guys think of the remake? Joseph, I think you said you've changed your opinion slightly of the film.
Right. Well, the last time I saw the film was when it was released, and if you've read the review on Hysteria Lives, I really did not like it. I found the characters were really obnoxious. I thought some of the humor was just really forced. It was, the whole Todd Farmer, his brand of humor really doesn't sit well with me. But I watched it again last night, and I liked it a little more. I mean, I still don't think it's all that spectacular. I mean, for a remake, it's okay, but I think my problem is that I really don't care about anyone in the movie. I mean, whereas the original, I liked all of the characters. They were, down to earth, real people. And this, they seemed like airbrushed people out of magazines, and I couldn't really relate to anyone. So there was no sense of imminent danger on part of anyone. And also, I mean, I'm obviously going to spoil it because that's what we do here. I thought the whole Fight Club twist with Jensen Ackles being the kind of split personality of this killer, it just felt so cheesy and tacked on, and it's just kind of doing that same old thing over and over again, and it just didn't really sit well with me. But overall, I mean, it has a few good set pieces, and I really love the scene where they're in the supermarket and the killer comes in and chases them. I love that, and you have the cameos from like Tom Atkins; those are applaudable, but it's just meh. That's my opinion of it.
Right. Okay. What about you, Nathan?
I rank it far above meh. I really liked it. I thought it was entertaining. I like the 3D, of course. Supermarket scene's really, really good. And I didn't really find, it's got its fair share of obnoxious characters, I could say, but I actually kind of like the leads in it. Maybe even I like the TJ lead a little bit better in this one than I did in the original. Actually, a lot better. I thought it was a decent movie, and that trailer always cracks me up. Nothing says date movie like a 3D ride to hell.
What about you, Erik?
I didn't mind it, but I mean that could be because I've been exposed to so many dreadful remakes. I mean, if you think about it, April Fool's Day, Prom Night, Friday the 13th, Halloween, they're all terrible. This one came along and it's actually really, really entertaining. Now, I do have the same problem as Joseph does with the film in that the characters do seem like they've stepped off a magazine, and just because you put a checked shirt on them doesn't make them sort of a small town, dowdy woman, But the 3D was good, for starters, because again, I'd been exposed to really disappointing 3D movies. It was sort of the first one that was ballsy enough to sort of poke things out at the audience. There's a lot of like pointing guns at the audience. Pickaxe is a great weapon for 3D. You get an eyeball in 3D coming out on the screen. It didn't do it as well as Final Destination 4, which I still think is the best use of 3D in the current boom. But I mean, it was good. I watched it again last night. I watched it in 2D because I had a bit of a headache and couldn't face watching it in 3D with the red and blue glasses that came with the Blu-ray. I still think it's good. I mean, it zips along at a nice pace. It's certainly nowhere near as good as the original, but I wasn't expecting it to be. I was expecting it to be dreadful, and on that basis, I was pleasantly surprised that it is actually quite good. I do think the Kerr Smith, is that his name, the lead, seems a bit too young looking to be a sheriff. He looks like he's about 22. And I think Jensen Ackles is really bland.
Oh. Well, you're in trouble for that.
Well, actually, no.
I had no problem with Jensen.
I agree with Erik. I think I really like Jensen, especially in Supernatural. I think he's great, but I think he is quite bland in this movie. I don't think he's very good in this movie at all. No, he's fine, but he's kind of his character's quite unlikable, quite miserable. Whereas in Supernatural, Jensen plays Dean Winchester, who's always got he's got like a quirky charm to him, and he's kind of like slightly, he's always looks a bit like he's a bit devilish.
Does he smile in Supernatural?
Sorry? Yeah, he does. He does, and he and he's kind of in Supernatural. He's always cracking jokes. He's a little bit goofy. Whereas in My Bloody Valentine 3D, I mean, yeah, fair enough. He's gone through quite a lot, and obviously he's mental and he's killing people. So there's not a
mental
lot to
people
laugh
can
about.
smile too.
Well, exactly. But I don't think he's great in this film, which is a shame actually, because I thought it'd be really good for him to be in there. And obviously he was playing a character who was quite dour, and that didn't translate for me particularly well. But I really enjoyed this movie. I mean, it's not a classic, but as already been said, it's certainly way above like Prom Night or Rob Zombie's Halloween or anything like that. It's a much more fun movie, and the people who made it kind of know what the early 80s slashers helped make them. They still haven't got it right. I mean, it's very difficult to get it right. That kind of camaraderie, that kind of fun. They haven't got it right, but they've got some of it right, I think, in My Bloody Valentine 3D. I mean, certainly the opening sequence with the chase through the mines is a great way to open it. And the kind of the stalking scenes, and of course we talked about the supermarket scene. It's it's a classic scene. I mean, it's kind of really well done. If the whole movie had been like that, well, not the whole movie, but if it had been all the set pieces, then I think people would hold it in a much higher regard. But the supermarket sequence, it kind of threw back to kind of films like Intruder, which is kind of set in a supermarket as well. But that was really tense and really well done. The irony for me actually was that the gore was good to see. It was quite fun, but it's I don't know, because now we've been hankering after sort of like the excise gore scenes from My Bloody Valentine for so many years now. But now in say Final Destination and all these different films, that the gore scenes are so they're not exactly overdone, but I think they were overdone to a point of parody in My Bloody Valentine 3D. And in some degree I like it, and sometimes I think it just takes you out of the movie a little bit. But I thought it was good for what it was, and also I remember seeing it at the cinema in the 3D, and now 3D is tainted in so much. Apparently they're now saying that people are choosing not to go and see 3D movies. They're going to see the 2D ones because they can't see the point of paying more money, which is fair enough, because 3D audiences have been treated really badly with really bad kind of 2D to 3D ports, where My Bloody Valentine 3D was filmed in true 3D, I think. And I remember when we went to cinema, it was only a couple of years ago, but when the Lionsgate logo came up on screen, that was probably the most impressive 3D effect in the whole film. And I remember hearing gasps from people going, wow. But the irony is, when I saw Friday 13th Part 3 in 3D on a scratched up old print at the British Film Institute, which I've spoken about before, the 3D was more impressive in that for a film made in 1981-82 than any of these 3D films I've seen, the new crop. It made good thing. But I'm sure back in the 80s when I went to see things like Jaws 3D and things like that, you actually really got the 3D effect. And I don't know if it's just me getting older.
Back then, they weren't ashamed to use it as a gimmick. They're really embarrassed about 3D, it seems now, and all they want to do is give the film depth. They're too ashamed to be poking things out of the screen because they know the film critics are going to harangue them for doing that. And that's what I liked about Final Destination. It wasn't a great film, but it really knew what to do with the 3D.
But they did do it in this film, though, didn't they? Because with the gun, the guy poking...
They do it a bit, yeah.
You know, and throwing the...
Yeah, but I mean, if you look back at Friday the 13th Part 3, Amityville 3, Jaws 3, like every 2 minutes, something ridiculous is going to be poked out of the screen. And that's what I want from a 3D film. I don't care if the plot is rubbish. I want things coming out of the screen. I don't care about seeing a bit of depth. I want stuff coming off the screen. And that's what we don't get from the majority of the current 3D boom.
Absolutely. And I mean, the other thing with this, which is not taboo busting, but they obviously the naked,
yes.
Todd Farmer and the woman spending the thing. Although, funny enough, I don't know, because there was that other film, 10 to Midnight, which had the killer who was nude, running around nude, but on the TV version his pants stayed on, and so they must have shot 2 separate versions of it, one with him nude and one with him not nude. But in my Blade Valentine 3D, I kind of guess they probably did shoot 2 different ones, because I'm thinking about TV. When they shot on TV, they probably, because what's weird in the difference between American TV and British TV is that when I've had American friends over here, and I imagine it's probably fairly similar in Ireland, I don't know, but you can swear quite a lot on British TV. You can say cunt and fuck and stuff like that. After the Watershed, it's not all the wall to wall, but you can do it. And also the whole sexuality thing, you can have sex and so quite nudity. But I know obviously in America with when what's her name's Jackson's had a wardrobe off, and Janet Jackson, when her boob fell out. I mean, it was horribly wrinkly and disgusting. So that was part of the reason why they had such a horrible reaction to it. But if that had happened in the UK, you wouldn't have had that kind of reaction. But in America, it was like, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever. But I kind of I don't know, would that be the case that they would? Could you show a butt naked woman running around? On American TV, or
no?
Not?
It's a little more. It's a little more lax these days. Like if for cable stations like FX, they have partially naked women and partially naked men. I mean, you see their rear ends and most of their breasts except for the nipple. I mean, it's getting a little. I mean, it's getting a little more. What's the word I'm looking for? Liberal, I guess.
Liberal,
And as far as cursing goes, I mean, you have like channels like Comedy Central with South Park. I mean, they say everything except for fuck. I mean, they say shit, cunt, bitch.
They've said fuck too before, though.
Yeah, they do that like after midnight. They have like the uncensored. They'll let them say fuck or whatever.
Right. But if you're talking about like network TV,
NBC, ABC, CBS, no, you won't hear a word from them. But that's pretty.
The cable shows, yeah.
Yeah, like cable, like Shield. I mean, there's a show called The Shield that we used to watch all the time. It's a great show. It's on cable, but it's still considered not network, but they still are reamed by they grow from advertisers. Unlike HBO, who doesn't have advertisers or Showtime, it's just a block of uncut stuff. They have these shows that are basically having to rely on advertisers, and they had this one show basically just getting away with murder. I mean, the only thing on the Shield that they could not get away with was saying fuck. I mean, they had nudity, swearing, harsh, very harsh violence, male on male rape. I mean, it was quite it's really quite crazy. Not to get off the tangent there.
No, I mean, it's kind of, because I've seen in the UK we get a lot of what's it called? Not Showcase. Is it Showcase? The cable
HBO,
HBO and stuff. Yeah, we get those, and we get So we see that side of things, but I know when I've been in America, it's still quite conservative, isn't it? Anyway, I mean, it's completely off subject. Well, not completely off subject, but it was just, I was just thinking with that particular scene, which is going to
because it does go on for quite a while.
Yeah, it goes on
and
for a long while.
She never acquires any item of clothing apart from her stilettos.
No, exactly. So, but I'm trying to think what else there is to say. I mean, the film made a shed load of money, didn't it? I mean, it made a huge amount of money, and the.
Hey, sorry to interrupt here, but didn't it make more money than the Friday the 13th film?
I think it did. Yeah, I mean, and this is Patrick Lussier and Todd Farmer. We're talking about they were all up for doing a sequel, weren't they? And apparently, even the surviving cast said they would come back and do it. But Lionsgate decided not to do it, and I don't really understand their rationing behind that, because I mean, it made it was a relatively low budget movie, and relatively, I mean, I don't know how much it cost, probably 20 million or whatever, 20, 30 million, but it made something like 60 or 70 million at the American box office. Then you factor in the worldwide box office and the DVD sales and Blu-ray sales and cable sales. It probably made an awful lot of money for Lionsgate. So I'm not quite sure why it didn't get a sequel. I don't know. It's one of those things, but... I
wonder if there was a sequel, would Todd Farmer write in another scene where he gets to shag a busty blonde lady?
Well,
because that's he. He plays the character who's shagging them. Yeah.
But apparently, originally it had his cock in it, didn't it? Oh. And they cut it. Well, not cut it out. Decided not to go with it in 3D because they said it'd be too much to have Todd Farmer's cock coming.
I just thought, like,
screen.
when I saw that scene, because I recognised Todd Farmer obviously he's in Jason X as well. I knew he was the writer of My Buddy Valentine. And I was like, what a dirty little man writing this scene for himself in this movie.
He did this. He does the same for Drive Angry, doesn't he? He has a sex scene in Drive Angry.
Oh, does he? I haven't seen that.
He wrote Drive Angry.
Yeah, no, he wrote Drive. I mean, Drive Angry is a Nicolas Cage film, which we saw at cinema, but which flopped really, really badly, didn't it? Which has probably, I imagine, stalled their career quite. Put a kind of kibosh on their career going much further, because they were...
Whose career, sorry?
Well, Patrick Lussier and Todd Farmer.
Oh, was Patrick Lussier the director of Drive Angry?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
I mean, it's a good film. I mean, it's a kind of fun film. It's a bit like a kind of... If you can imagine Nicolas Cage doing a remake of Drive with the Devil. It's a bit kind of along those kind of lines with Satanists and all this kind of stuff. But...
Erik, I thought you saw Drive Angry.
No, I didn't. What I did was I asked somebody what was the 3D like, and they said it wasn't a poking out of the screen type 3D, so I gave it a miss in the end.
Okay.
See, I really didn't care for the 3D, but I actually really liked Drive Angry, the movie. I liked the William Fichtner character who played the devil's hitman.
That's one I'll get on. I'll rent it on Blu-ray when it comes out.
It's definitely worth seeing. It's worth seeing.
I liked it.
I mean, the only problem, Nicolas Cage he's toned it down a gear for this. He's actually the droll.
He looks bored almost. He almost looks bored. He's
kind of droll. Normally he's great when he's kind of bug-eyed and going and being like the bees. That's Nicolas Cage we know and love. But in this, he's a bit like droll. He's almost like everyone else is hyper overacting, and he's just kind of like playing it really kind of cool, which isn't what you really want from a Nicolas Cage movie. But it's a good movie. It's a good fun time, and it probably works better on the small screen, in so much it's kind of more of a kind of old style 80s action, romp, which but yeah, because they were talking about sequels and stuff. I mean, Patrick Lussier and Todd Farmer were attached to Halloween 3D, weren't they? Which was the mooted taking forward, because they prized the Halloween franchise out of Rob Zombie's hands, apparently. Because obviously Halloween 2, although it still made a lot of money, it kind of it underperformed compared to the first one. We made about half the amount, which of course it's all to do with money, isn't it? And I think they were talking about pushing it over to someone else, and Patrick Lussier and Todd Farmer were talking about taking it back in the direction of John Carpenter, but doing it in 3D. And if you've ever looked into the making of Halloween and Halloween 2, the originals, is Deborah Hill says that they looked at making both the original Halloween and Halloween 2, but at different times, making it in 3D, and they decided against it because it would be too difficult for like a low budget film. So, I think a Halloween film could work quite well in 3D, but again, the fact is that this Drive Angry bombed so badly. It probably going to kind of stalled a lot of things. But is there anything else you want to say about the remake? Is there anything else that comes to mind?
I wanted to mention, I didn't get to mention it when I spoke about it, but when I went to see it when it was released in 3D, I thought the 3D, it really gave me a headache, and probably more so than any 3D film I've ever seen. That may have tainted my enjoyment for the film when I first saw it, which is why watching it in 2D last night, I liked it a little more. Not a whole lot more, but I still think they have a really, really, really long way to go before they get to really good 3D effect.
I agree. I mean, Erik, have you watched, or Nathan, have you actually watched it in 3D on Blu-ray? Or DVD?
I have, yeah, and it's actually quite effective, believe it or not. The problem with films in the current era is they cut things too fast, which doesn't work for 3D. You need sort of a slightly more lingering shot to get the 3D effect properly, because your eyes don't have time to adjust, and that's what gives you sort of dizziness and headaches. That's why, when you look at Friday the 13th Part 3, like the baseball bat comes out on the screen and stays there for a few seconds, or the pole holding up the washing line, and but I mean, it does look quite good. I mean, have you seen the anaglyph version of Friday the 13th Part 3 on Blu-ray? Because it's quite shockingly bad.
Oh, that is awful, isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't find the My Beloved Valentine remake 3D very good on when I looked on Blu-ray, because it's I mean, because now you've got the 3D televisions, haven't you? You've got like the properly 3D televisions. I've still not seen one.
Neither have I.
But I know some 3D films have come out, and those, so you actually get like it's the kind of silver, glasses, isn't it? It's sort of like what you get for real 3D in the theatres. But I found it, apart from the opening sequences, which I really liked, the opening sequence of the remake with all of the news type floating, that worked really well in the cinema. But I think it was kind of for me the remake, although the opening scene with Harry Warden in the hospital when he kills everyone, it just what it does is it kind of it takes it too far beyond. It goes. It's too over the top. It's too cartoonish. That you would have someone suddenly who would kill that many people with their bare hands in a hospital. It's not going to happen, is it? Probably.
It's not realistic.
It's not realistic. I know it's kind of weird. You need that balance, because obviously a movie about someone dressing as a miner with a pickaxe going around killing people is not going to be realistic, probably. But you need that balance, which the original has, and a lot of the kind of early 80s slash movies have. Even though some of them were quite knowing, they knew they were being a little bit ridiculous, or their conventions were already set in stone and they were playing with them. They still kind of kept one foot in reality, which the remake, this idea that you've got was it Jamie Presley? Is it Jamie Presley? No, what's her name? The woman. I can't remember if it's
Jamie King.
Jamie King, that's it. She's working in the supermarket like Laurie does in the original. But I know, although her husband, Kerr Smith, is the sheriff, they've got this massive house and a maid. I mean, how many people work in a supermarket have a huge house? And that's always been a bugbear of mine about movies. You get, especially, you get these people working in a 7-Eleven, and they come back and they've got a big Manhattan apartment. How does that happen?
I know. They don't live in Dublin, obviously.
No, so it's just kind of bizarre kind of thing. And I thought, I disliked it more this time I watched it, just because I didn't find it as engaging as I did in the other times I watched it. And but whereas, having said that, I watched My Bloody Valentine again, the original, for the 30th, 40th time, and I just kind of got that tingle, when I watched it, that I kind of, it just does it for me, which the remake is certainly no Prom Night remake, which is, the worst piece of shit that I've ever seen. But, I mean, compared to, we'll have to, I will, because I think I've already said it before, I've not watched the whole of it, because the copy I had, it went wrong about 3/4 of the way through, and I just had no desire to find out. If you're watching a DVD and it starts jumping and then it freezes and you go, oh no, I really want to know what's going on. It was kind of like, yes, it's broken. I don't have to watch the rest of that piece of shit. But I'm sure we will get to Prom Night at some point in the not too distant future.
Well, the good news for you, Justin, is that I'm pretty sure the Prom Night remake is available on YouTube, because I was telling you I was watching the Sorority Row remake on YouTube the other day. And I'm pretty sure I saw the Prom Night one listed there as well.
What's
so there
Baby
you go.
Jesus?
No excuse.
What's Baby Jesus thinking about these?
I don't know, but we're free of guilt because we haven't put it there.
Yes. Okay. No, that's fair enough. Fair enough. We're going to talk to, or Joseph talks to Paul Zazar. We're going back to the original film very shortly about doing his, doing the music for My Bloody Valentine. Before we do that, is there anything else we wanted to talk about, guys? So we can come back afterwards and talk and wrap things up. Or should we go through to the interview?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, excellent. Joseph, do you want to introduce your interview with Paul Zazar?
Yes, this is my interview with Paul Zaza, or whatever his last name is. Take it away.
Excellent. Here we go.
Sarah, she's in the mine with the others.
What?
Her, Hollis, and Patty. They took their rail cars down there. They're in the mine right now. We gotta get them out.
That's where that crazy guy probably is. Look, he'll kill them.
I'm gonna get her out. Come on! Come on!
Hello everyone, Joseph here again, and I'm speaking with the extremely talented composer behind such slasher film classics as Curtains, Prom Night, and the movie we're featuring today, My Bloody Valentine. He is, of course, Paul Zaza. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
All right, first off, how did you get involved with My Bloody Valentine?
Well, quite simply, the producer called me on the phone and said, we need a Canadian composer for a Canadian horror slasher film called My Bloody Valentine. And we looked through all the composers on our list, and you made the A list, and then we sifted it down to you. So it was really, I guess at that point, I had already done I had some credits on some fairly, successful horror films already. And they said, well, that's the way the business works. They tend to want to get somebody who's current, who's kind of hot at the time. And that was my 15 minutes of fame, so I did it.
Was My Bloody Valentine, was it an easy film to score for you, or was there like a long process involved?
Well, like most films, Joseph, the scoring part of it is actually the easiest part. And our biggest problem on that film, oddly enough, was the censor board. A lot of people don't know this, although it's starting to come out now, but that film was much more graphic and much more violent than anyone realizes. George Mahalka, the director, directed a much more violent slasher film than what is ended up being on the screen, and a lot of those scenes have been put back in, although still trimmed and cut down quite a bit. But back in the 80s, the censor people had way more power than they do now, and the rules were much more stringent than they are now. So what this meant to me was that every time we'd score a scene, they'd send it to the censor board. The MPAA, who is the governing body there in the States, they are the ones that make these decisions for all of us. They would cut out, a lot of it. And of course, then the music wouldn't work anymore because the scene was cut. So I ended up rescoring the same scene 3 or 4 times, and that's every slasher scene. So, and if you know the movie, you'll know there's quite a few scenes where somebody, gets their eyes popped out or gets a pick through their forehead or whatever. We had a lot of versions of these scenes, so that kept me really busy.
Right. So I guess that kind of answers my next question, but I was going to ask you if you were in this film, or even Curtains or Prom Night, were you working off of storyboards, or were you just given access to the completed scenes?
Scenes are never completed until the film is in the can and it's being shown in the theaters. You have no idea how complex it really is. I mean, and then it's complicated even further by the fact that they'll do a sale of the film to, say, Japan, and the Japanese would want all the gory scenes and all the blood and the guts back in. So we have different versions. We'd have a Japanese version. We'd have a German version. We'd have the American version. We'd have an England version. And then, you'd have all these different cuts of the film that would conform to the laws of those countries. So every film, the same film could have like different lengths to it and have different scenes in it.
Right.
And this just, of course, this makes much more work for the sound people and the music people, who it's me.
Okay, is there a difference for you personally? Is there a difference in the thought process, like when you're scoring a horror film as opposed to scoring, say, a family film or a drama or a comedy or anything of that nature? Is there do you have different thought processes when you're scoring a horror film?
Of course you do. Obviously, if you're scoring a comedy film like Porky's, you're going to think differently than a horror film like Prom Night. Generally, in the world of horror, I've found, and I've done quite a few horror films, there's no subtlety involved. The more you can, the higher you can get them to jump, the better. There's really not much more to it than that. Suspense, keep them waiting, keep them guessing, and then when you do hit, that final bump, you've got to get them to just jump and scare the crap out of them. That's basically what the mandate is. And whatever sound you can come up with that will accomplish that goal is fair game. So it's really quite simple.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of leading into what I was going to say about, a lot of people, or even critics for that matter, when they're judging a film, they usually look into the performances, the story, or even the special effects, and more often than not, the score kind of gets overlooked. And having said that, I think your work in My Bloody Valentine was really, really complex, and I think the movie's really helped by its moody score, and it's easily one of my favorites of the genre.
Well, thank you. This film was physically, literally shot 250 feet down below the Earth's surface in a mine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is not CGI. There was no CGI. This is not done with miniatures or any kind of an animation process. This film was literally like they brought a 70-man crew down almost 300 feet below the Earth and shot this thing. They had to light it and shoot it. And my point is that there's something really kind of organic and creepy about this because of the way it was actually done. And my point is that, something really creepy and organic about that. When you look at it on the screen, you just sense that this was not done in a Hollywood CGI room. This is what it's supposed to be. And that filters through even today when you look at it. It just filters through. You get the creeps from looking at things, just like the dampness on the walls, and you see the darkness in the tunnels and the train. All the stuff that he got on there is very. It's just organically creepy, and I wanted the music to be equally organic and primal and dark and dank and creepy and like mind-like. So I tried to use sounds that one might hear if we're in a mine. And I could only imagine, because I've never actually been in a mine, but I imagined you'd hear like water droplets, and you'd hear clunks and clangs and a sort of a hollow ambiance that would be like from the wind coming through the tunnel, and all those kinds of sounds were integrated into the actual musical notes that I played. And I just felt that it kind of matched the picture, the music, and they obviously thought so as well. And then when people had to jump, we made them jump. We scared them. So that's sort of the way this whole thing took place.
Oh, absolutely! You did a really fantastic job. But
thank you. Thank you.
As a whole, what do you think of the film personally?
Well.
That's kind of a loaded question. I'm sorry.
No. It's funny because I didn't really think much of it. I thought, well, no big deal. And actually, it kind of came and went unnoticed. It didn't. Believe me, it did not set the box office on fire.
Yeah, I heard that it wasn't exactly, because at the time period, those kinds of films were making, a lot of bank at the box office, but that one in particular didn't do too well.
No, it didn't do nearly as well as Prom Night did. Prom Night was a huge hit. And this film kind of came and went. And I mean, the gimmick on it, they try to hang it on a gimmick, and whether it's, like a prom or Friday the 13th or Mother's Day or St. Patrick's Day or Valentine's Day or Halloween, it's all been done, right? It's all been done. They need to sort of hang the release of the film on kind of either a holiday or, something that's sort of mainstream. And I think Valentine's Day was the only holiday or whatever that hadn't been exploited yet. It was the only major, kind of, we've all seen the Black Christmases and all the horror films that took place at Christmas time. And I guess, I don't even know if Easter got one, but, Valentine's Day seemed like a natural, and they come up with this script, My Bloody Valentine. Stephen Miller wrote this, My Bloody Valentine, which was kind of great with the whole heart thing, only the hearts got ripped out and sent in a box of chocolates. And, you know, they really made a creepy film. But the audiences were lukewarm to it. They didn't think it was all that brilliant, you know. 20 years later, somebody discovers, hey, this is kind of cool. This is weird. This is great. And word of mouth, but especially with now the technology, the internet, YouTube, and all the rest of it, you know, people discover something that was relatively unknown, and they say, wow, there's a lot of hidden gems like that out there, you know.
Yeah, it's good that these movies, they kind of take on a second life, you know, 20, 30 odd years later. And a lot of them are getting kind of remade now. And me personally, I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but me personally, I prefer the older ones, but that's just me.
Well, yeah, me too, actually. But that's just so we're just giving away our age. Well, actually, you're young. You're young. You know, and the guys at Terror Trap, I mean, these guys are young guys, right? Dan and Jason. But I mean, their whole site and their whole mandate is to talk about the beauty and the splendor of the '80s slasher films.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. I didn't really want to take up too much more of your time, so I was going to ask you if there's anything that you would kind of like to plug, or maybe have any kind of final words to composers out there who want to break into the business.
You know, that's a tough one because, first of all, everybody now with a Mac computer is a composer, a film composer. And I've got like all these people coming to me all the time saying, I got Apple, I got my computer, I got Logic 9, I got the keyboard all set up, and I want to do movies. How do I start? Like, where do I get in? The problem is there's way more of them than there are movies being made. So how can these hundreds of thousands of would-be composers possibly get film projects when there's only, just look at the number of films that are actually coming out of LA and Canada, there's none. Our film industry is basically dead. Okay, so all those films that came out in the 80s were all Canadian films, like Prom Night, My Bloody Valentine, Terror Train, all of them. So how does a young guy with no track record and no experience, and how does he break in? I don't think he has a chance in hell.
I guess it's kind of a luck of the draw. I mean, if you get in, you get in. If you don't, you don't.
There's no formula. You go and take a course in school and get a degree. That's probably not going to help. There are no words of advice to get in because the industry has. I mean, the other thing that's happened is the industry has kind of, with technology, you know, it's sort of self-destructed in terms of music, because music used to have a lot of value to a film. But because it's been inundated with so many sounds and so many, you know, GarageBand and that Logic 9 and Sibelius and Cubase and all these different programs that are now available to be purchased by the consumer, all these sounds are out there, and they have no value anymore. Anybody can make a scary score now just by jumping on an Apple computer, you know, make scary sounds. And so since it's so commonplace, it has no value. It's supply and demand, right?
I guess that's the way the progress works with technology and everything. Most of the real composers who actually, you know, put real music into it rather than using a program, they're kind of left by the wayside now, and it really is a shame, I think.
Well, but, you know, I mean, that's what I do best, actually, is the problem. First of all, nobody has the money to do that anymore. That costs a lot of money. You've got studios and engineers and 90 musicians. And, you know what I mean? Like, who can afford, with the budgets they're leaving in these films, how could you afford to do that?
I can imagine.
You know, their attitude is, well, we don't need, because now you do it all on a computer, right?
Right. I mean, these programs have, like, you know, like, for example, some of these programs will just have like a track just for like string quartets or something, and it sounds like someone just went and recorded, you know, a symphony and, you know, imported it into a computer. So you really don't need that musician anymore.
Well, they sample it. It's just called
Yes.
the sampling process,
Sampling,
where they
right.
will sample a note, and then from that they can clone an entire symphony. Well, that's all great and wonderful, and it's technically great advancements. But you know what? You can tell when you listen to it.
Well, there is a difference, I believe. I agree with you.
It's like shooting the movie in the mine. This is like a great recap here. It's like going down with a crew and shooting the movie in a mine, or mocking it all up on a computer.
Right. It's like
I mean?
sound stages as compared to filming in a mine. I mean, like sets that they don't have the real vibe. Like as music has that vibe, whereas the computer music doesn't have that vibe.
No, it's very sterile. It does exactly what you tell it to do and what it was programmed to do, but you get no emotion that you would get from a violin player who spent his life, and he has emotion in when he plays, and he reads your music and plays with that emotion and that passion. You will not get that out of a computer.
That's why they call it. That's why they call it a computer. It's a machine. It doesn't have a thought process.
No, it's not a human, and doesn't have any passion or emotion in it. It does what it's told to do, and it does it the same way every time. So anyway, not to get philosophical on the whole thing, but that's where it is now. Unfortunately, it's quite polarized in Hollywood, where all the big movies come from. You get the big comic books, the Iron Man and the Spider-Mans and the Batmans, and they come out with these big Marvel epics, and they will put the proper money in to do the proper big scores because they know they're going to do $200 million at the box office on the first weekend, right? So the money's there. Anything else that isn't sort of in that comic book or that 3D animation genre that seems to be huge, they like leave 50 cents in the budget, and they say, well, we'll just get somebody to do it on their computer at home, and that's all we need.
Oh, I definitely agree with you. But yeah, I'm not going to take up too much more of your time, so I just wanted to thank you again for participating today, and I'm sure everyone who listens to the show will really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Joseph.
And hopefully I will talk to you again soon in the future.
Hope so, too. Thank you.
Have a good day, man.
You too, man. Bye-bye.
Bye.
What the hell are you trying to do?
Are you all right?
Yes. Yeah, we're fine. What's the matter with you?
We got to get the hell out of here. Harry Warden is back. He's killed Sylvia and Dave up top.
Are you kidding? What is Harry's dead. Harry died a long time ago.
You shut up and listen to me, goddammit. No, they're dead, and he's down here somewhere. If you want to get out of here alive, you do exactly as I tell you.
What are we gonna do? This better not be your idea of a joke, TJ.
Do I look like I'm joking?
All right, that was the composer Paul Zaza, or Paul Zaza, whatever his last name is. It was really nice talking to him. He had some really good insights on the music industry and his time on the film, and we really appreciate the interview, Paul.
Absolutely. It's fantastic. It's an absolute joy for us to talk to these people, involved in these classic movies, because it can't underestimate how amazing it is to actually talk to people. These films that we enjoyed so many years, and actually to get to find out behind the scenes stuff and find out they actually enjoy them as much as we do, which is absolutely fantastic. So we're going to wrap things up shortly. Obviously, we're going to be back. The Hysteria Continues is going to be back. As I said, we haven't got any feedback in this episode or the last episodes because you may have already, I think we already said we are recording this quite a way in advance because some of us have some plans and we found it a little bit difficult to hook up and get us all together over the next month or so. But obviously we didn't want to leave you hanging, because I know there's people out there listening to our every word. Well, maybe one or two of them, but we didn't want to leave you hanging, so that's why we got content for the that's why we listened to this. But what have we got? We got plenty coming up, haven't we?
We do. We have after our little break, we're coming back with Michaela Sovi's Stage Fright, and we have an interview with John Morgan, aka Giovanni Lombardo Radice, and I believe Nathan has picked Killer Party, and he has an interview too as well. Nathan?
Yes, with Elaine Wilkes, Phoebe, or Phoebes, as she's affectionately called in the movie.
We have those two shows planned, and after that, I'm sure Justin and Eric will pick some well-regarded films.
I am sure we will do. Have you got? Well, are you keeping that close to your chest, Eric, or is he still trying to get Dirty Dancing?
Yeah, it's something I might ponder over as I'm sunning myself on a beach in Spain next week.
Yes, we blame it all on Eric. That's he's kind of he's like the Yoko Ono of the Hysteria continues.
Oh,
I don't mean it.
Low.
So what?
Very low.
But very low.
It's Eric.
You're the Linda McCartney.
Who, me? What, the sausage? Okay.
Well, yeah, and the one who pretends to be talented in the background, but we all know you don't play the keyboards.
Oh gosh, I don't know if this podcast can survive this picture.
This rift.
This rift.
This is a bigger catfight than.
This will be our last episode.
Yeah, tune in next time to find out whether or not we can actually patch up our differences, or we're all going to be
leaving Suede, Brett. I can't take it anymore.
We shall all. Sorry.
We really do hope you enjoyed this episode. I think this is, for me, this has been one of my favorite to record. I mean, My Bloody Valentine obviously is one of my favorite films. So,
well, that's things
not in my top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for all of us, it's been an absolute joy, and to speak to these people as well has been fantastic. And apart from our little rifts behind the scenes, maybe we can do like an E-network style kind of extra show when we kind of dish the dirt on each other. But that will be to come. But My Bloody Valentine. What's not to love? I've been trying to keep this show clean, Joseph, as you know. So,
sure.
Well, but you're a story about going around New York.
Yeah, well,
the three talks.
Far from clean.
Yeah, I didn't go into the
Fritz
dildo
Nog.
shop, did I, Eric? I never actually said I went in and looked at the dildos, although actually I did go and look at the dildos. Anyway, Eric, have you looked up Three Cocks?
I have looked up Three Cocks, yeah.
And was I correct?
You are correct.
See.
Oh, by the way, our next top three will be top three cocks.
Okay. Well, we'll have to think how we'll do that.
Aberchlinfi, but the English translation is Three Cocks.
Okay. So, well, see, Joseph, I'm sure we can pull that one off. Okay, and on that bombshell, what we're going to do...
Mine is number one.
What we're going to do is we're going to play out now with something slightly different, but there was based in Dublin, or originating from Dublin, were a group who took their name from My Bloody Valentine. In fact, they called themselves My Bloody Valentine, and they were in the premiere what was back in the early 90s called the Shoegazer movement, which you may not have heard of in the States. In fact, it sounds quite similar to kind of some of the grungy stuff that was coming out of Seattle and places in the States around about the same time. But this is, to play us out, is My Bloody Valentine, and probably their best known tune, You Made Me Realise. See you next time.